Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us here on the Daily Racing Form YouTube. I'm Gino Buccola alongside Mailloux with producer Bobby helping us out as we get you ready for a big graded stakes race coming up this weekend at Woodbine. Saturday is King's Plate Day at Woodbine. They have a huge card, couple graded stakes races on the menu, and one of them is the King Edward, the Grade 2 King Edward, going a mile here. We'll have four that exit the Grade 2 Connacht Cup. That was that local kind of similar race where you'll have a lot of these horses exiting. Think just at first glance, Cruden Bay, Dresden Road make a whole lot of sense, Ashley. They're just really sharp, really honest horses who show up each and every time. They're Woodbine horses who are local, who know the turf course, and I just think they're both going to run well in here.
Yeah, this is really the kind of locals race, as you can see when you go through
Yep.
the names in here, with the exception of public sector, maybe the one that jumps off the page. You see Safi Joseph Jr., but it's a really nice graded stakes event for the local horses to go a mile on the EP Taylor. And I agree with you. I mean, you mentioned several names in here that all have a shot. I think some of them will need to do a little bit more. Maybe it's the distance, maybe the surface that allows them to do so. But I pretty much agree with the line and the fact that Cruden Bay and Dresden Row, I think, will take most of the betting support.
Let's see how Timeform US thinks this one will shape up as far as the early pace of this race. Doesn't surprise me to see War Strategy from outside. He wants to be forward. You also have Piper's Factor, who can kind of be a runoff in some points, like was two starts back. Figure those two from inside, from outside will probably go. And then, you'll have horses like Dresden Row, who wants to sit a little bit more. Cruden Bay, on the opposite, he kind of wants to come from the back of the pack, so he'll probably be moving late.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. You have two horses that show early foot. They get the bookends, luckily, I guess, for them. And I think they
Yep.
can probably clear in here. They showed Twin City close. I don't know. Sometimes he is, sometimes he isn't. I think he has to be a little bit more forward, though, against this group to probably be effective. It just didn't pan out for him last time out. He's also cross-entered, so that'll kind of decide where he decides to race, whether he goes here or they do race him in the Bold Venture. So that would obviously adjust here after scratches. And I think the main thing is Cruden Bay. He is the closer. He has a wicked late turn of foot, and he should be towards the back early.
Start things out and meet the field here with Piper's Factor. The stakes winner going a mile on yielding turf about 2 years ago in the Toronto Cup. He's over the last seven right now, isn't in the best form, and he was actually getting a pretty good trip in the Connacht Cup. He was sitting fifth, about 3 lengths off, getting a great setup. He makes an early move, really no excuses. Cruden Bay just ran right by him late in that race. So I didn't really have the strongest thoughts on Piper's Factor in this. I think he's more of an under type. I couldn't quite get there on the win end with him.
Yeah, tough on the win end. I think when you look at his race two back, I don't think he wants to go a mile and a 16th on the inner. He's
No.
fine going 7.5. I think a mile and a 16th with the two turns too far for him. I do think this configuration is probably more to his liking in terms of the distance. He ran fine last time out. Just a little bit of a tough sell when you see Cruden Bay, right? Was able to just motor by him in that race.
Twin City is a stakes winner on the synthetic, one going 7 furlongs on the synthetic back in May, just hasn't really been as good on the turf overall and doesn't have as much of a body of work on the grass overall for us to kind of look at as his resume.
No, and that's going to be the interesting thing. Based on this race, do they go here? Do they go to the other race?
Yeah,
Toss up. I might go to the other race. I just
I
think
would
his
too.
numbers are a little bit better on the Tapeta, and it's probably the right distance. I think it's 6.5. His 7 ace races, whether it was the end of last year or his first, they're good. It makes you wonder now with some racing under your belt, do you take a step forward? So I just have concerns about him in this race.
We move to Cruden Bay. 18 for 24 in the top three. He's won 3 of his last 4. He's won 4 of his last 6. Multiple graded stakes winner. He just wins the Grade 2 Connacht Cup. And that was his first start back after 11 months off, Ashley. So he should be able to at least run back to that. You would expect and maybe even think run better second start off the bench, getting a little fitness. So he's just a horse who I have a hard time knocking in this race. His running style would be my major concern, and just if the race doesn't set up for him, he could come running for second or third, but you just know what you're going to get from him. He's so honest.
So honest. And I think Donnie McRae has done such a good job with him. He has had an interesting career. You only see him a handful of times in 2021, and then you see him a lot in 2022 and 2023, but he's doing something completely different. He's routing on the Tapeta. And now, last year they made the decision. They'd only raced him 4 times, but they made him a turf horse, cut him back in distance, and it's worked out well. And you can see fresh off the long layoff, he had a very long layoff, right? He was ready to roll. He did his thing, same sort of running style. He picked up a new rider in the process, Fraser Abley aboard for the first time, and they win by a length and a half. I just think there's a lot of upside. It's one of his better figures. He deserves to be a short price in here.
Wyoming Bill is a lightly raced 4-year-old who's going to step up into stakes company. He closed pretty well late when finishing third against non-twos last time out. How do you think he fits in this group?
He is, I would say, a live long shot. Here's my thing with
Yeah,
his turf races. They're all on the inner, mile 16, 7.5. His numbers are still pretty competitive, ranging from an 80 to a 92. In terms of the setup, you can see when they go a little bit slower, he can be a couple lengths closer to it, especially 3 starts back. He was closer to it in a 10-horse field, but more recently he's been rolling from off of it. Needed more, but I thought kind of the trip that he got last time out, he gave up some ground. Now you see Jose Lascano booked to ride. I think he might fit him very well. So at a big price, I could use him underneath.
Yeah, 3 straight races in a row that aren't too far off fitting in here, at least a bottom of exotics horse. We moved to Dresden Row, comes off of a runner-up effort last time out. 2 starts back, was third in the Highlander. He's a multiple graded stakes winner on the consistent, and he's been very, very solid. No worse than third in his career on the turf in those 3 starts. So really honest, third start off the bench. You get a slight cutback in here. He should be sitting in a nice spot. Lots of positives for him. Not really many things to knock.
No, it's just, when he doesn't win, he's second. He's got a
Yeah.
lot of seconds on his resume. I think he doesn't have a turf win. That's missing. But I thought his performance in the grade 2 starts back for kind of your first time cutting back off the bench, going on
Needing
the
the race.
grass.
Yep.
You look at who finished in front of him, Patches O'Houlihan and my boy Prince, very respectable racehorses. So then you see him in the Seagram Cup. They go back to kind of what works for him, and he's second best there behind Swift Delivery. I know it's a little disappointing, but he's had to give up some ground in those last 2. I think he should be better third start off the freshening. And for me, even though I said, he's got a lot of seconds, I think he's the horse to beat because he's just going to be closer to it, I think, than Cruden Bay.
Yeah, that's the key. You should be able to get the jump on that deeper closer. Lucky Score is a multiple graded stakes winner sprinting, but hasn't been in top form since about 2 years ago, honestly. And he's just not as good going longer. And another negative, he's not that quick early. So he's not in the best of form. He's going to be probably way, way out of it. And this isn't really his ideal distance. I had a hard time getting to this one, Ashley.
It's not his ideal distance, I will say. I think when you go through his past performances, he loves the EP Taylor. So that
Yeah.
works out for him a little bit. I liked his win 2 starts back. To me, he was full of run. If the pace is blistering in here, which I don't know how it's going to be, I think he has a live shot. I just don't think it's going to be that quick for him at
Yeah.
the mile distance. I think the sprints that are 6.5 and a 7, he's going to typically get the trip that he wants. So that would be my knock on him. I do think, though, last time out, he was just far too back. And he did have a little bit of racing problems in there. But, at least he got a little bit confidence back, 2 starts back. After 2024, you only saw him 1 time, or excuse me, 2 times in 2024.
Mason's Gamble is a winner last time out, going 6.5, but that was his first win in the last 15 starts. So now, as a 7-year-old, can he step up and win a graded stakes race at a mile on the turf and go back to back?
Yeah, that's tough for me to say. I mean, he has figures, again, another one. You can go cherry pick and you can find figures that you really
Yep.
like and others that you don't. And last time out, he took this step forward. I'm just not sure what he necessarily faced in that race. Where, we talked about the horse to his inside in here. I can kind of make more of a story there. So he's going to be a big price if you like him. He would just be a pass for me.
Gas Me Up, the 8, makes a lot of sense in this race. You can go through, I think, his entire body of work, and you see what he was doing in Southern California early in his career. Once he's stretched out to a mile, he breaks his maiden on the going a mile on the turf. Then they go into a graded stakes race, and he had some trouble in that race, and then he was off for from October of 2022 all the way till June of 2024. Shows back up, wins a 6.5 furlong race at Woodbine, then another layoff. And off of the layoff in June, Ashley kind of ran like a horse who needed the race on June the 1st after that year off. But on July 20th, in the second start back, I thought it was an extremely impressive performance. He was fifth, about 4 or 5 lengths off. He was in the two path behind horses. He waited. He found an opening. He angled out like 3 deep in between horses and just crushed. And now he's going to go third start of the form cycle. Flavian Pratt is aboard. He just feels like he's moving in the right direction. One of my main concerns is just the price. I feel like this could be a horse that gets bet a little bit in here because there's the other 2 horses that I think will take a lot of money. And I could see this one being one that maybe takes a little and is down in like the 4-1, 7-2-ish range. I wouldn't want to go too short on him because he still is pretty lightly raced, but he's certainly one of the now horses who's moving in the right direction.
He is. I mean, to think about the June 1st race being his second race since October of 2022 is crazy. And he probably needed it. I mean, obviously there's a concern when you race, you have a good effort, and then we don't see you for a year. But I think he needed that race. I think when you look at that race and you try to say what was behind him, Huntmaster has been a consistent horse for years, but Swift Delivery comes back to win 2 in a row, including the Seagram Cup. So that flatters him a bit, especially with the fact that next time out we see him ready to roll, and it just was such an easy win. So now you have to think, all right, they have him figured out. He's coming in here off a career best.
Public Sector won 5 of his first 9 races. That was in the Chad Brown barn. We're talking back in 2021. He's favored in the Hollywood Derby. At that point, the Grade 1 Hollywood Derby. Since then, won for the last 23. But that win did come here on the turf course at Woodbine. So that would be the positive. He's going to go second start back after the trip to Barbados. I mean, this is a multiple graded stakes winner who has a lot of back class. Do you think he can call on any of that back class in here, Ashley?
Tough sell for me. You mentioned the win up at Woodbine. That was good. They raced him again up there. Then we don't see him for a couple months. Then he doesn't run well. Then we don't see him for a couple months. Obviously, they took a shot and sent him down to Barbados. And his regroup race, not sure he wanted the 1.25 miles. It's funny, you go down the page, though, he has good efforts at 1.5 miles or going a little bit longer. I'm not sure that's what he wants to do now. I think the cutbacks helps him a fair bit, but off his last out effort and now this sort of turnaround for him, they must have not thought he fired and that, there's an excuse and they can come back and wheel back. It's going to be a big price, but he's tough for me.
War Strategy is a nice horse across the board and to use in under spots because he's 15 for 19 in the money overall, Ashley. He has 8 straight top 3 finishes. Honest, but best going a little bit shorter than this. I think from the outside draw, probably the one to catch. I could see being in the mix early, maybe fading late, not being able to hold off some of these horses who are a little better at 1 mile and going a little longer, but very, very honest for Mark Casse.
And I think with having the outside, it's going to be very interesting. I do think he's the speed in here, the reliable speed. I don't think Piper's Factor is necessarily that reliable.
Agreed.
Should be forward, should be pressing this one. But I think there's a real chance that the tendon here shakes away early. And if that's the case, even with the distance, you bring up a great point. It doesn't have the mile win, right? We're looking at a lot of 7/8 races. If he shakes clear, I don't know if that extra furlong gets him beat. So I would like to see a better price on him personally. I think he might float up to 5-1 or so. And I think that's a little bit better value on him. But in terms of his buyers this year and even his final start last year, different surface, I know, but he fits right here.
It actually wouldn't shock me if the 8 and the 10 were to flip prices, right? If Gas Me Up took some of that money and War Strategy floats up. And then I think that does make more War Strategy a little more enticing at 6-1, as you're pointing out. So as we move to selections here, Ashley, a field of 10 competitive group, you and I actually have the same exact top 4, just in a slightly different order. Talk us through your top 4.
Yeah, super boxes for Gino and I go with Dresden Row, and I'm not necessarily a fan of a horse that always finishes second and things of that nature, but I wonder if he gets the right trip in here. We're big fan of Cruden Bay, who I use in the third spot. I think he's going to have his work cut out for him, and maybe he is better and is able to do that. I just don't think they're going to go that quick, and I want a horse like Dresden Row who's a little bit more tactical.
5, 8, 3, 10 for Ashley, 8, 3, 10, 5 for me. I'll go with Gas Me Up on top. I need about 4-1 to jump in there on a win wager. If anything less, that's probably a little bit too short in this competitive race. Whoever you play, however you play them, we wish you the best of luck.